This year, I started watching Canada's Drag Race as a way to do more exclusive content for my Patreon page. I avoided watching that spin-off for the sake of not overexposing myself to drag competitions and in order not to have to figure out all the ins and outs of the way that they make that spin-off. However, I have mixed feelings on Season 3, the season currently airing. The queens are charming and quite diverse in their style and skill. The challenges in runway categories are either inventive or they take the best that the main franchise has offered. And almost every single week's runway has been incredible. Everything else on the season, from the editing, the judges, the mini challenges, the runtime, sometimes also the judging, is not up to par with how great the former was. In the latter regard, it is trying too hard to be like the modern US seasons, without having the stellar and sometimes reality-bending storytelling of Drag Race seasons 1 through 9. However, in their Snatch Game episode, we saw the show's top 2 competitors up to that point in the bottom 2, with Kimmy beating Lady Boom Boom in the bottom 2 lip sync. Even after watching their performances in Snatch Game used to Drag Race shenanigans, I expected only one of them to be in the bottom 2, and then a mid or low tier competitor to be sacrificed for the sake of keeping a strong competitor. But no, that did not happen, and it left me genuinely shocked and impressed, while also understanding of the outcome, which are all signs of good storytelling. The episode was constantly one step ahead of us, and it made for a fantastic viewing. Have we had moments like these on regular Drag Race? Not moments where the showrunners were one step ahead of the audience, that has not happened in a while, but there are loads of those moments in the single-digit seasons. I'm wondering if there have been moments where Drag Race eliminated one of its frontrunners with or without shenanigans being involved. If you enjoy what I do here, you can support me on Patreon, or you can like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Before we continue, I want to give a special shout out to my new supporters on Patreon. Yarastok, welcome back. Travis, Confucia, I'd say, Philip, Etai Hurl, also welcome back, and Chris. Thank you all for joining and helping me out. Of course, there have been times that Drag Race has eliminated frontrunners. There wouldn't be this video if that weren't the case. I would consider a frontrunner somebody who is at least in the top 3 with their track record given an episode. Obviously, we have had frontrunners where their status is that was more story, favoritism, or viewers' expectations based, but those are not our focus today. Basically, a queen had to have had first, second, or in some rare cases, third best track record the episode before she got eliminated, quantifying her placements using this point system. I only looked at the regular seasons, so the 14 seasons that we've had so far, and I found 13 different instances of when this happened, but 3 of them are debatable. You'll see what I mean. Seasons that had no eliminations of this sort are seasons 2, 11, 12, and 14. I did not look at the All-Star seasons because, for the most part, the queens there eliminate each other, and eliminating a frontrunner may produce a negative consequence for the queen. If you want me to do a video where I talk about every time a frontrunner was eliminated on All-Stars, do tell me in the comments. Let's start off with the 2 instances where I could agree that they could be omitted. Mimi I'm First on Season 3 and LaShawn Beyond on Season 4. I know, you're already typing away how I have no idea about Drag Race, how dumb it is to include these 2, but given the parameters that I set, they fit. But barely so. Mimi I'm First was eliminated in Season 3's 3rd episode after 2 high placements. Raja and Alexis are the only other queens that could match or beat her track record, each having a safe placement and a win, with Raja also winning Episode 1's mini challenge. Mimi, up until Episode 3, was the only queen that placed above the safe placement in both challenges. But she was always perceived as a joke, so her placements never seemed to carry weight. On the other hand, LaShawn in Episode 1 got the
"How do I say this and remain socially responsible?"
dark horse at it, placing high with her low-key avant-garde look on the runway, and was eliminated in the immediate next episode. She was a frontrunner for a hot second, but that second quickly passed. The last honorable mention is Blair St. Clair on Season 10. Blair on Season 10 was kind of a non-factor. The most attention the edit gave her was in her last episode, Episode 6. Prior to that, after Episode 5's results, Blair had the season's best track record, even though she had no wins. The 10th spot I gave to Ivy Winters. Season 5 was the Jinx versus the World season, and Ivy, even though she's immensely talented and versatile, had to be relegated to a supporting role to Jinx, which is why she's the lowest here. Interestingly enough, after episode 7, she had the second best track record of the season, right after Jinx. Her elimination came in episode 8 at the hands of Alyssa Edwards in one of the seasons and the show's best episodes, when the queens did the perfume commercials and also made actual sense. Can we please have more challenges like this? Ivy's elimination was quite emotional, and after it, Jinx was seemingly left with no friends in the competition. It literally became Jinx versus the world. She would have been ranked higher here had the focus of her elimination been, her, and not the effects it was going to have on Jinx. In the 9th spot, I put Thorgy Thor. Thorgy was eliminated in episode 7 in the season's best lip sync against Gigi Devane. Starting with episode 3, Thorgy's competitive spirit took over and she became so entertainingly jealous of Bob, which, from what we know now, she did not actually exhibit in the workroom, it was mostly done in the confessionals. Anytime Thorgy could have won an episode, Bob stole her thunder, and it made her more and more agitated. This led to what seemed like a sudden conflict she had with Chi-Chi in episode 6, that later led to their pairing in episode 7 and Thorgy's elimination. After the results of episode 6, Thorgy had the second best track record, amusingly enough only behind Bob, but on par with Kimchi. Even though Thorgy never really got the possible winner edit, she did pose a strong threat to her Team New York companion in Bob, and had the runways mattered even a tad little bit more when it came to the decision making in episodes 3 and 5. Though for the latter it is hard to say because of the whole kimono gate and Bob doing 2 characters on Snatch Game. Next, in the 8th spot, I put Ben de la Crème's elimination in season 6. This could have been higher on the list, but the only reason it is not is because, Dela should have been eliminated way earlier in the competition. In her first lip sync against Darian, when her track record matched Bianca Del Rio's. However, before her elimination in episode 11, Dela had the second best track record. Still, she seemed to have been the only person that could, in theory, outdo Bianca in the competition, which she proved during her time on All Stars 3. Her elimination cemented that it was Bianca's crown, though I think we all know Bianca won the season the moment this happened.
Let me ask you a very fair question. What do you do successfully? Quickly.
In the 7th spot, I put Acid Betty and her elimination in the 5th episode of season 8. By now, I think we all know that the Acid Betty versus Naomi Smalls lip sync in episode 5 was the pivotal one of the season, taking away the perceived power that the Team New York had and showing Naomi as a viable competitor to win the crown. I know it's silly to say that winning a lip sync for your life makes you look like a possible winner, but Naomi's track record after her bottom 2 placement is impeccable. What helps this notion is the fact that Acid Betty, up to that point, was the strongest competitor. She wasn't the best only after episode 4. No, Acid Betty was the season's strongest competitor in episode 3 as well, while being the second best in the season's first 2 episodes. Pair up her stellar run here with the fact that she was the first villain of the season, and one of the best villains we've ever had on the show, it seemed that Acid was a viable competitor for the crown. If not that, she was at least going to be the villain that gets beaten in the end. And then, the lip sync happened, and in theory, the show could have very easily disposed of Robbie in this episode, but they went for the gag of eliminating one of the frontrunners. In the 6th place, I put Miss Cracker and her elimination in episode 11 of season 10. Even though the season had many flaws in its second half, with episodes 9 and 11 being probably the show's worst episodes ever, the first half of it told a very good story centered on Aquaria. The winner of the season. What a novel concept, making the story of the season about its winner and how they won. Whatever happened to that Drag Race? Miss Cracker was there to be the more experienced queen who doubts the talents of a less experienced one, who takes her place in the end. In episode 10, Miss Cracker got her first ever win in the show, which propelled her to the #1 spot in the rankings. However, even though that is the case, Cracker never really got a winner edit, and getting your first win 10 episodes into a season is not really a good look for a winner. While she was the frontrunner score-wise, nothing about her edit was telling us that she was a viable contender for the crown. However, the nonsensical critiques, double standards, and overall lack of care Drag Race had and still has when it comes to its contestants' mental health makes Cracker's elimination all the more tragic. In the 5th place, I put Rosé's elimination in the finale of season 13. Lip syncing for the crown is technically a challenge. People do technically get eliminated there, so I would say that this fits. However, this isn't as high simply because, well, I don't know, did anybody think that Rosé was going to win the season? Firstly, she was placed in the loser circle of the queens, which very much so meant that there was no issues winning the season. She could have won it had they edited her story differently, but that did not happen. However, she is here because, well, again, she did have the strongest track record in the episode before she got eliminated, the 13th episode. And Simone, the winner of the season, was able to beat Rosé's track record only after Rosé got eliminated and Simone won in the end. That's how much of a lead she had. But again, kind of like with Miss Cracker, the winner edit just kind of wasn't there for her. She was shown as a strong competitor, yes, but that's about it. The show never allowed us to relate to her, and everything Rosé did seemed so pre-calculated that many fans just saw it as unorganic. Again, kind of like with Miss Cracker. In the 4th spot, it's her, Valentina, and her elimination in episode 9. While Valentina was not the best track record-wise after episode 8, that honor belongs to Shea Coulee, she was the show's favorite. We got to relate to Valentina. We got to see just how perfect, how beautiful, how much she looked like Linda Evangelista, and how much she was a model. And we got to see her never placing below safe before her elimination. Also, there was that whole thing Valentina did with Michelle Visage before the season began. So the show they needed us to pay attention to Valentina and be emotionally invested in her so that her elimination felt as much shocking as possible. Her elimination not only kicked off a contender for the crown, but also turned Nina Bonina Brown into a fallen hero and Shea into an even stronger hero, who in the next episode, after seeing that she couldn't help Nina, had to slay her. Basically, Valentina's elimination did not only leave an impact on the competition, but also on the fans' perception of the cast, fans' perception of the season, and ultimately, her refusing to lip sync was the final straw that changed the finale format for the foreseeable future. And speaking of eliminations that impacted the competition, fans' perception of the cast, the season, and in this case, of the judging and the production, in the 3rd spot, I put Max's elimination in episode 7 of season 7. So, Max. Her inclusion on season 7, her elimination, and fans' response to her elimination is very telling on how the show changed in the span between seasons 6 and 8. On season 6, we got Adore, the predecessor to the social media queen archetype, but maybe the first ever young fan favorite queen, as in a favorite for the younger demographic. Adore's popularity was so big in season 6 that there was almost a double crowning between her and Bianca. In order to strike when the iron is hot, half of the season 7's cast could fall under the umbrella of young queen, or at least not old in style. Then they also pushed those queens heavily, and now they're some of the most popular and successful queens. This led to the show modernizing itself and allowing for newer forms of drag to be showcased on the show. However, it also invited heavy racism from the fans against the likes of Jasmine and Kennedy. And even though the show pretended that they were against the fandom's mistreatment of them, they chose to eliminate Kennedy in the top 4 episode. Just a reminder, for that season, they filmed every one of the top 4 getting eliminated. What does Max have to do with any of this? Directly, nothing. Obviously, it's not Max's or any of the queens' problem that certain fans relate their entire identities to the queens that they like, quick, and they take any negative critique of that queen as a personal attack. But Max's elimination showed just how terrible the production was, and still is. It was our first look behind the curtain. Max was very much so an alternative queen regarding her attitude there. She had a persona in drag, and she was not crude, she was not overly sexual, nor rude. If you ask me, that's something that should be shown more on Drag Race, even if it was just a persona. I go even more in depth on how Max was mistreated and why her bottom 2 placement made virtually no sense in my The Mistreatment of Max video, so I implore you to watch it. But in short, Max did not have to be in the bottom 2, but the production did put her there because they wanted to dispose of her, even though she was, up to that point, one of the season's best competitors and personalities. In the second place, what I alluded to earlier is Shea Couleé's elimination in the finale of season 9. Again, like with Rosé, it's technically a challenge, it's technically an elimination. If you haven't seen my video from last week explaining why the lip sync for the crown now sucks, you may not know the full story behind why they needed to implement the format in season 9's finale. Shea was the season's best competitor up to that point, and I think it's pretty safe to say that the crown was as good as hers after the ball. Shea even got one of the season's major storylines with Nina, and her and Sasha were a great dynamic duo, but Shea was always shown as the number 1. Shea's elimination was fair in the sense that, yeah, she lost that lip sync, but did it kind of seem like a dick move? Also kind of, yeah. In the finale, it was Shea's crown to lose, and you know what? She took her getting demolished on that stage by Sasha like a champ, and we should applaud that. So you're probably sitting there thinking, what is worse than Shea getting eliminated last minute when the check for $100,000 already had her name written on it? Not literally, but figuratively. Well, in my number 1 spot, it's the first ever instance of this happening. We have to go way back to season 1 of Drag Race and talk about Ongina's elimination in episode 5. Her elimination was just an omen of what was to come. The show in season 1 did not really know who or what they were trying to push, and the production meddling came in mid-season and was very clunky. For instance, Merle, one of the judges, applauded the likes of Ongina and Nina Flowers on their styles in the first third of the season, but after episode 3, she started randomly criticizing them for not looking feminine enough and looking too much like men, or boys in Ongina's case, which is a critique that RuPaul had given both of them. I go over the nonsense Ongina and Nina endured in their respective mistreatment video, so again, do watch that. Ongina went home during the makeover challenge, a challenge that in theory should be great, but that the show was able to fuck up every single time because of their judging. It's basically a challenge where the producers can guide the judges to judge in favor of certain queens or against other queens that they want to push in the competition or that they want to see eliminated, not even trying to pay attention to constant inconsistencies in the judging there. Ongina was a victim of that. She had 2 wins and 2 high placements up to that point in the competition, and so the best track record. In the entire season, only Nina Flowers was able to beat Ongina's track record, but she still had less wins than her, and BB, who matched Ongina in her wins, had less high placements and 1 more low placement. Everything pointed to Ongina needing to stay in the competition, even her performance in the bottom 2 lip sync. I know some fans rationalize BB's win here by saying that BB took her wig off, and that showed vulnerability and just how much she wanted to stay in the competition. Listen, that would be all fine and dandy if we had not already seen Chanel do it so much better 2 episodes prior. RuPaul literally had to walk away from the judging panel and talk to the producers to know whom to eliminate. The person who did better or the person who, from episode 3 onwards, kept being described as RuPaul-esque, either that she reminds the judges of RuPaul in style, demeanor, or runway presentation. Ongina's elimination thus started the show's long trend of production meddling, the overlooking of Asian queens, the overlooking of different drag styles, and Drag Race's attempt at homogenizing drag in RuPaul's image, pushing of Ru's favorites instead of queens that actually do better, the villainization of perceived masculinity, the nonsense that's the makeover challenge, and so on. It's sad that almost a decade and a half later, the show still has not moved away from these qualities. And It's a question if it ever will. Thank you for watching.